Hello, chess friends, and welcome back. Today, I'm going to walk you through a long game which I played recently. So it was like, each person gets 1.5 hours time control, and it was a interesting game, and I was quite pleased with my own level of play. So I'd like to share the game with you. Here we have this kind of a structure, this kind of a setup with an early e5 crackaroonie. And I, of course, just kept it closed. In many lines, you can capture here, capture back, trade the queens, and you get that kind of a boring game, which, even though it looks like you've disturbed black's castling, the positions tend to be remarkably comfortable for black, and statistically also pretty promising for black. So the right idea is to still keep it a bit closed. He wants to jump in with the knight here already, but b4 would kick him away. So he plays a preparatory a5, and then he jumps in. But now the bishop has enough time to come here and remain on this diagonal. Why is it so important to remain on this diagonal? Because black's idea is to play f5. We know that. We can see that. That's the reason why he hasn't developed his knight as of yet. You know, I can read his mind. We know what his strategy is, and that's what it is. So hence bishop c2 here maintains control on the queen side and also prevents the main pawn break plan which black has. But he's continuing on with it anyway. He's continuing on with the plan. And here I play g4. Now g4 is my own personal style and how I like to play these positions, these kind of King's Indian type setups, especially in the e5 lines. I like to go with the d5 triangle and g4 triangle. Check out any of my videos, King's Indian, H3, Makagonov variation. There are a lot of similar pawn structures over there. All right. So I think my opponent didn't react maybe in the best way, although I don't know if this was a bad move either. But anyway, I just kept it closed because that's 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 what's working well for me in this position, is that his pieces are kind of clumsy, not having much room to go anywhere. So keeping it closed helps to strengthen that idea. Now he's lost the pawn break idea, so he's trying to scuffle up in the center, which is all fair. So we all make a series of moves. And now white has to think of his plan. And obviously, if you don't know what your pawn break is, you don't have a plan. You have to know where your pawn break is coming from. Now, pawn break could be f4, but not really necessary here, and that would actually activate his bishop, bring him into the game for no reason. The other pawn break plan is simply a3 and b4, which obviously makes sense because you've got a lovely knight outpost here and you want to kick him away. So we do that. And knight retaliates here, keeping an eye on the pawn. And here's where I make the first error of the game. A very difficult error to spot, though, I must say. I played queen b1, holding on to the pawn with the queen. And, I didn't think the queen had much scope over here anyway, so I figured she's a bit more useful on this side. But I did not expect knight capture. It came in a little bit by surprise, caught me off guard, and I was immediately gripped with a bit of anxiety and thinking, all right, let's just go for it. I capture, he captures, I capture back, he captures here. Then I capture the pawn. Then he comes in with a check, queen check at the bottom, and then it becomes tricky how to defend it. Because if you defend it with the knight, then his bishop can also come in here and start to slide the zinger on the queen and the knight with the other queen here. So the tables would have turned, and that's no good. Instead, what I should have done instead of queen b1, apparently, was bishop a4. A very difficult move to see, because, well, basically you're just swapping off the stuff and you're taking advantage of the main motifs in the position, which are the back rank rook, the offside knight, and you're exploiting that, trying to exploit that. And it's very marginal exploitation. Like, you're just strengthening your position, but there's nothing like super duper concrete here that you're winning a piece or anything like that. You're just stretching and squeezing. So, all right, now how do I react here? It's really important to know how to react when you're surprised. You have to take a deep breath, cool down, and think from scratch. What are your options? And I after thinking a lot, I came up with the idea bishop a4. Because why did I think of this? It's because you see this knight, that's his main vulnerability. And his bishop here, that's a pretty good piece for him. It's a very good piece, actually, as we showed in the other line. And my bishop, okay, he's defending this pawn, but he's not really doing much. So swapping the two bishops is better. And it keeps his vulnerability alive. It doesn't allow him to dilute his vulnerability, liquidate it for my relatively stronger piece. So that's the reasoning behind it. And I don't know if his response was perfect. I believe he could have done something better, like pawn b5, and you just lose it like this. I'm not exactly sure what the follow-up plan is here for black. Oh yeah, then this knight captures here, so that the bishop can hold on to this pawn. You capture back, and then the other knight captures here as well. So that's the whole idea. You sacrifice a knight for two central pawns. Okay, so the position had already gotten kind of bad here, actually, for him. This move was surprising, and he retreated his knight, and here was also a critical case because now the momentum has shifted back. The momentum has shifted back, and it's really important to capitalize, squeeze when you've got it in control. Don't flitter the advantage away by playing some quick moves, exchanging the pieces, relieving the tension. You've got to keep the tension going. So I was deliberating between queen captures here and bishop captures here. I think those are the main ideas, or bishop taking here. Now, the main reason for bishop captures would be to advance the queen and somehow try to capitalize on this loose rook. And the main idea for capturing here with the queen is also to potentially allow for some simplification and, keep an advantage or whatever. But really, bishop captures is the primo move here, as you can see, because it forces the queen into an ugly square, and the tension remains. Just one other point here. If I took it with the queen, he also has knight here, which holds everything together and kicks back the queen, so things would be quite okay for black. But anyway, we captured here, we got his queen into an uncomfortable position, and here I played another minor inaccuracy, but I thought it was a good move anyway. Knight b5. Knight b5 is keeping the tension going. It's like, I'm not simplifying the position. I'm keeping the tension going, putting pressure on this pawn. The king's in a mating net. So it's really stressful position here. Really stressful. Many people will just crumble and collapse and crack right there. But not my opponent. Our opponent defended in perhaps the only way that he knew how to. The best defense for him would have been, again, the knight sack. Knight sack, defending the pawn with the bishop, and yeah, that's the best alternative here for black, is to sack a piece for a pawn. Instead, our opponent retreated to knight g8 to its starting square, and look at that position. It's all cramped up. It's not very promising. Black is way behind in development. The equilibrium is way in white's favor right now. So it's important to remember and you have to keep counting cards. You have to keep seeing where the equilibrium is at. And therefore, you know that you can make a move like this, which is a patient move. It's a patient move, making sure that you hold things solid for yourself. Because this is easily a kind of position that the advantage can flitter away faster than you can think. All right. I'll walk through a few variations in a sec, but just to know another idea here, another idea could have been queen here. Queen here defending the pawn and attacking the bishop. Seems natural, but it has another pitfall. The pitfall is that the bishop comes in here. And now, if the knight captures, then we've got knight capture with check. So the king has to move. Then you get another knight capture check. The king has to move. Then you can liquidate the queens off, or I'm not sure what options might remain, but you can liquidate the queens and then eventually take this rook, and you win the game comfortably after that. So this position was a practically decent choice. It made it harder for me to figure out the killer blow. And here's where it's easy to squander the advantage. For example, knight here was a key idea which I had. It was a key idea on how to take this attack forward further. I've got to continue this attack, got to continue this stuff, and got to harass the queen. But the problem with knight here is that you run into the queen check. And if you move your king away, you run into another queen check. And not only that, but now the bishop and queen help black to win back the bishop, and suddenly the tables will have turned. And I will have some dangling pieces off in the middle of nowhere. So just to let you know how quickly a position can change on its head, and therefore the importance of a precise developing safe move. Keep that in mind. Don't lose your head in the attack. You've got to sometimes make room for defense, especially when the equilibria is in your favor because your opponent is so far behind on development. Now we finally played the move. And he comes in with a very resourceful queen defense, because if you capture the rook can't still win the knight because the queen's holding on to it. It's a very interesting defense. Ultimately, I came back here, and at this point, our opponent actually resigned because he couldn't see how to carry this forward further. For example, if you capture here, then of course you come in with check, and then the bishop comes back here, and the knight's gone because the queen might even be trapped here. Actually, it's pretty crappy position. If on the other hand he comes up with the rook here, then the same idea. Bishop comes here, and again the queen's kind of like trapped. So yeah. So anyway, that was the game, and hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more.